You know, based on the problem that we mentioned earlier, which was like something that we had in common about these artists, I wonder how you're going to get through a full introduction here. Are you going to get through like half of it and then be like, "Oh shit"?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I look forward to it.
I have no idea what's gonna happen, man. I, it is what it is.
That's right.
I mean, it really boils down to the fact that I think you could. I mean, I just listened to all of these songs. I think if you gave me $1 million to sing one that wasn't the two,
Sure.
I would
I
not
could.
be able. I'd be like, no, keep that money.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Keep the money. Which maybe says a lot.
It might. It says something. Actually, that's not true. There's a couple of songs on there that were covers.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Oh, Nick, I'm sad you didn't want to do this one from 2007, The Secret of Christmas.
Yeah, I just dismissed it out of
Lord.
hand. But oh, what a great album cover. Wow.
It
That is
is.
something. Let's see. Anything
I can't believe
interesting
that's 2007 because that screams 90s to me.
Totally. Totally. You know what it is? It's because they're old and like the design techniques that were available to younger artists in the 90s that didn't look very good are
Yeah,
just now reaching that crowd in 2007.
it's true. Great point.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, there's
I'd be
nothing
so interested to
on there.
hear some of these though.
Okay, there are 4 originals on that album. 4
There
original
are.
Christmas songs. Okay.
But I'm very interested to hear some of their covers of this just for the issue that I mentioned that I had with Captain and Tennille, which we'll talk about when we actually do the episode. The tempo on these are interesting to me
They are.
because I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas is an up-tempo song.
Yeah, how did it
Little
become
Saint
a
Nick is an
ballad?
up-tempo song.
Mhm. Oh, I'll talk more about why that makes sense that they covered that.
Sure. It is very very interesting. A good old Franz Gruber sighting. All right. All right, let me get out of this. I don't actually want to still be looking at the Secret of Christmas. All right.
All right.
How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel ready.
Then let's be ready. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, begin.
Totem Talks is a podcast.
Yeah, that's all I got.
That's what yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, good. I love it.
I could go. Totem Talks makes me feel fine.
Yeah. And again, that'll be all. I think
correct.
We've covered everything that we need.
Yeah, I think honestly that's all that anyone's gonna know.
You're right.
Welcome in everybody to another episode of Totem Talks. This is season 8, episode 8.
That's right.
And
Double
we
eight.
got a 2v2.
Yes, that's right.
Just
As
double
8, we love
squaring up.
multiples of 2. That's
Exactly.
what this podcast really themes towards.
Wouldn't you know it? This is all our own personal Fibonacci sequence
Absolutely.
at work here. But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with Totem Talks, where the hell have you been? Get out from under the rocks.
Clearly,
All
in a
right.
coma.
Yeah, I mean, wake up. No, seriously, wake up. Wake up. Anyway, we're a music-based podcast, and we're self-appointed, but on a mission no less important for that. And our mission is to find the greatest musical artist of all time.
That's right.
We are searching high and low, we are leaving no stone unturned to
That's
try to
right.
find the greatest musical artist of all time. And I think so far what we've determined is there's a lot of artists who are not that.
You're right.
Really,
And
really found a lot of other alternatives to the greatest musical artist of all
sure.
time.
And to be fair, there's a very wide range that exists within not the greatest of all time.
That is true. That's true. I mean, it goes all the way from worst to second greatest.
Exactly.
I mean, the list is really endless.
Totally. It's
So
growing every day.
that's true.
Now, I guess
Until music becomes outlawed, and then
well, sure. Well, I was gonna say the question then becomes like, how do we grade AI?
oh,
Oh, it's released already. It's released more hours of music than like every other human combined over the last who knows how many decades.
listen,
But it's super derivative. Can't be given a lot of songwriting.
there
points
is one, and I mean this, one usage of AI in music that I am okay with.
Okay.
The rest of it is garbage. AI used to replicate any art, whether it's photo, video, or music, is all completely effed up. It is just it can't generate ideas.
Of course.
So it's not a generative process. It just pulls from existing sources, which means
Correct.
it in of itself is copyright infringement.
That's
and
the issue.
once the law finally catches up to it, if it ever does,
Yeah.
but I know there are lawsuits in the works where the precedent will be set. Hopefully it falls on the right side of that, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hold out hope for anything to be fine, but
Yeah.
but to go back, the only time that I think AI in music is cool is having artists who are no longer with us with very distinct famous voices do modern covers.
Yeah. There's a
It's
lot of that.
because that is hilarious to me. Like Frank Sinatra singing Call Me Maybe. Like that's funny.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty good.
That's funny.
I haven't seen that, but that I am interested.
Yeah. That's the only way because here's the thing. I could never pass that off as real. I could never be like, "Oh, this is a real song that a real person worked on."
Sure.
It's like, "No, clearly it's not."
No.
And that's the only way.
That's fair. I mean, like, I don't mind people like generating silly stuff for their own personal use.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a stretch to be like, hey, generate me a song about eating tacos in the style of Johnny Cash, and then posting it and making money off of it instead of no. If
That
you want
I
to
do
listen
not
to it
agree.
on your own, I guess like knock yourself out.
Even if you post it, like post the funny song, but like do not start monetizing that shit
Yeah, that's where
or
I
like
feel like
ad
it's
bait. Like no,
sketchy.
that's weird.
Especially
It's
'cause a lot of that stuff is like clearly designed to be based on the work of another artist. That's
yeah.
not.
And I think you're really running up into the darker gray area of fair use at that point because I know
Sure.
fair use is what people would claim,
Mhm.
but I think there's a difference between fair use as in like a cover of a song. Because a lot of times you can get away with fair use if you're covering a song or doing a unique version of it.
Okay.
But even then, you're in the real gray area because you need to be transformative for fair use.
Okay. Sure.
Reaction videos are qualified under fair use. Like if we took,
Yeah, because the
if we
content
played
is your
songs under-
reaction and evaluation of whatever it is that you're engaged with.
exactly. So like, you know.
Anyway, I feel like we've gone pretty far afield.
I think honestly, these two groups would really appreciate us delving into the depths of
be.
the AI discussion.
Which we're both super qualified to talk about.
Look, I feel bad for people. Did you see? One more thing, and then we'll go.
Go ahead.
Did you see that the dude who runs ChatGPT, like the main guy,
Mm-hmm.
had released an article or like was interviewed or something, and he basically said that we need to stop like saying please and thank you to the AI because it's costing them like tens of millions of dollars in like data processing
Sure.
to just respond to people
Yeah,
thanking the
well,
AI.
that's
It's like, guys, it's not real. It's not a real person.
right.
Just
It's also like, I mean, like I'm in favor of manners all the time, but it's absolutely terrible for the environment. Like
oh yeah, it
the
is.
sheer power cost to operate is like why we're all definitely going to die within 100 years. The twist is going to be AI did not become sentient and kill off humanity because we were destroying the planet. It was that AI cost so much power to operate that in and of itself destroyed the planet and killed humanity for us.
Yeah,
So
I
like
mean, it's really
you're
just
right that
gonna.
AI was going to get us, but it wasn't because they like chose to do it.
It's just gonna boil down to this because I like. Desperation yields innovation, right? Isn't that the term?
Yeah,
So
you hope.
like the closer you're backed up against the wall, the more you'll
The more
procure something.
MacGyver-y you become.
Right. So like it's just a matter of what'll happen first? Will we officially reach the point of no return before the invention is created? Whatever it is, whatever sustainable arc, like Tony Stark arc reactor
Yeah.
pops up and just fixes the energy crisis. Or will that happen first? Because it's one of those things is going to happen. Either we're going to cross the threshold where we officially are cooked, and I mean literally cooked, like we will be cooked.
I would
Or
argue we've been there.
yeah, well, we have. No, but I'm saying like with the technology we have now, we have been there. But the question is, will we stay there?
Is there a way
And
to get out of
I'm not holding out any hope, but
I'm not either.
we'll see.
So
Either
anyway,
way,
this
Captain
week
and Tennille.
we
That's
covered
what we're
Captain
covering.
and Tennille, and then we're gonna do Seals and Crofts.
Yeah,
So
the
those
two
are our
duos.
duos.
Yeah, well, this is a
Yeah,
music
tell us about
podcast.
Captain
This is
Tennille.
music. Right. Going back to music. Okay.
Woo.
All right. Yeah, we did kind of ramble there.
We did.
Yeah, Captain and Tennille. So they were an American recording duo, primarily from the 70s, but active from 1972 to 2013. We covered 3 albums. We started with Love Will Keep Us Together
It sure did.
from 1975. And just shout out to the 2 dogs on the front cover of that
Love those.
because they are cute looking pups.
They are.
We followed that up with Song of Joy from 1976. And then an album that has a title, and the title is technically More Than Dancing.
Right.
But it was
But we both found it listed as More Than Love.
yes.
So,
Which is weird because I don't see a reference to that on the wiki page for More
you
Than
think
Dancing.
that the album's wiki page might mention if there were alternate.
Yeah, you would think. But that
titles,
came out
but-
in 1982. So that's what I can tell you. That was a weird moment.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, love will keep us together. I would like to start by having a guest review this record.
Okay.
And that guest I will speak for. I'll just read his words. And it's someone we haven't talked about in a good while, but
Okay.
that is usually a staple of our show. Robert Christgau.
Oh, Robert Costco. It's been a
Yes,
while.
It's been a while. So here's what he had to say about Love Will Keep Us Together. One expected a lousy album, but not this lousy. Their good sense in appropriating Neil Sedaka's unused hit arrangement was a one-shot. The rest of the time, they spread the middle of the road so thin, they make rainy days and Mondays sound like Saturday nights all right for fighting. Admirers of the single should invest in a copy of Sedaka's Back. D-.
Oh, wow. It's
So he was very kind.
yeah.
So here are some other things about this album. The title track is the first track, and this is one of those instances that you like to bring up where the first song on the first album is the only one that I've ever heard before.
Yeah, it's dangerous time.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure that if I was alive in the 70s, I probably would have heard more than just that first song. They did score other hits and sell albums. It's just one of those things where none of it has stood the test of time except for that one.
Yes.
And it's also one of those things where, just like you sang at the intro, I thought I knew the song, but it turns out I only know when they sing the words that are in the title, and I don't know any other parts of that song. So that's kind of interesting. And of course, obviously, as is hinted at in Chris Gow's review, they didn't write that song. They didn't write about half the songs that were on here. Um, and the nice things I can say about it are this: it is like a very, very soft popish sound that sometimes ranges in instrumentation from like just a singer and a piano to like kind of a groovy Motown pop sound behind the keyboardists, but it was really cheesy sounding, and my God, they sucked all of the life out of God Only Knows. I mean,
They really
what
did.
they did to that song was not right.
Yeah.
But they're able keyboardists, and Tony Tennille has a very nice singing voice.
Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Both talented on the Ivories, and you did mention Tony Tennille, a wonderful contralto.
Totally.
These songs are fucking boring as hell, dude. Holy crap. I mean, for a 35-minute album, this album was 6 hours long.
Yeah, I get you.
Oh my God. Even the songs that you very, very generously called a Motown beat.
Sure, yes.
I mean, a Motown beat at half speed, maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
they were just slow and draggy. And it's
were.
like, dude, oh my God. Every single song, like, felt to me like it deserved to be like the second to last song closing down the bar.
Okay.
Like when you're done having the music that people are dancing to, and now it's just the sad people drinking beer at like 1:58 a.m. and it's like,
Yeah.
all right, I gotta kick you out now. And it's like, these are the songs that are playing. That's what it just felt. It just felt super slow and sedated all the way through. So like, even though Tony Tennille could sing, she could sing me right to sleep. I mean,
Yeah.
but like not even in like the good way. Like from a couple weeks ago, where I was like, I forget the name of the group now. Your group from like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where the first album put me to sleep. Was it Goose?
No, we haven't covered them.
No, who was it then?
Oh, you mean your group? It was Grizzly Bear.
Grizzly Bear. I knew it was an animal. I knew it was an animal.
That
It was my
your
group. Hey,
You've already
look,
forgotten.
I was asleep. What can I tell you?
Okay, fair enough.
They put me to sleep. But this album wouldn't even put me to sleep. It just made me like angry at how sleep inducing it was.
Sure.
Good. I'm glad they got that out of my system. Because Song of Joy. I'll take us into Song of Joy. Oh no. And by that I mean it was a lot of the same stuff. I mean, this is only like a couple years later. So like what, 72 to 76? So, or 75 to 76.
Yeah,
It's 1 year. It's only
yeah.
1 year. And guess what? Not much changed.
Nope.
You're still getting some covers of what I guess theoretically could be Motown songs. Like there's a Smokey Robinson cover on here.
Yeah, Shop Around. I mean, that's a tune that people know from the Motown era.
Look, this album, I want to theoretically say it was better, but I feel like I'd be lying. It was pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Tony Tennille sounded good. There was nothing even close to like a risk in any way musically, unless the risk was, let's just play a bunch of really slow, boring songs and see if people like that. And to be fair to them, it worked. People liked it. I mean, it sold records, at least a couple, at least one.
It's well, at least like 1 million.
Yeah. So was I wrong when I said at least one?
No, you weren't.
Okay.
You weren't. I was just specifying further. I feel largely this. I listened to these 2 records in a row, and there would have been no possible way to know that anything had changed without looking at the actual track listing.
Yeah.
It's just cheesy and boring. It's not that the playing is super basic or uninteresting. It's not that the arrangements are like too basic, but they're just boring and cheesy when it all comes together. It's again the case of I feel like there is talent here, um, but I'm not enjoying how it all comes together. It's not really doing anything for me, with the possible one exception of an original, and I'll give credit here. It was a 2-minute song called "Going Bananas," and
Sure.
genuinely, I will say that the music went bananas. Like it was genuinely like chaotic and interesting in a way. There weren't a ton of different lyrics. It sort of reminded me of like a tequila type song, but with like a couple lines instead of just a single word. Um, but that's like the only song by this group that I would ever like revisit at this point. Um, and that's pretty much what brings me to More Than Dancing / More Than Love, which was original. This is really strange. So they basically have decided they're going to conclude their major recording career in 1980. But then Wizard Records invested in them to record one more, but it was only released in a limited fashion in Australia. And it
Interesting.
wasn't released anywhere else until it came out on CD in 2003. So for 21 years, this was an extremely rare LP that only existed in Australia or from people who went to Australia and bought them and went back to wherever they were from.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that I think explains maybe some of the weirdness. I don't know if there was a change or an error or an issue that caused the album to be different after it was re-released and like was able to be quote unquote rediscovered with the CD release and then streaming. But it's mostly like a lot of the same, but like updated for the times. So now it's like the single most like middle of the road thing that you can think of, but it was written in 1982 instead of 1976.
Yeah, which means instead of keyboard, instead of piano, you're getting like keyboard and synthy ish.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's okay. They've clearly like heard disco. They found out that you can like use the electric guitar on your records and a couple things like that. But really, in terms of the overall vibe, I mean, the only thing that's noticeably different here, I guess, is that we're down to one writing credit instead of the like half of the album, give or take, that we were getting earlier.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
yeah, I agree with you. It was still bad. Which is crazy because like I've heard of Captain and Tennille.
Me too.
I was really expecting more.
Yeah, but
I just didn't happen. Didn't happen. There was no more. It was like pleasant vocals and like boring melodies and really no instrumentation that tickled my creative ear. And that's it. Like there's a reason that one song made it, and it's because if you've heard one, you've heard them all.
That's true.
So it's like, we just picked one. This is the one that made it big.
Yeah, and it makes sense that it was one of the like more upbeat sounding ones compared to like
I mean, dear Lord,
drag out ballads.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, like this is, as much as I had to criticize last season about the Carpenters, this would have put them to sleep and like covered all their records in an extra layer.
You know what's funny? The Carpenters immediately started playing after this last album.
Of course
they were like, "Oh, you've listened to 3 Captain and Tennille albums. You're gonna love.
Would you love
this.
the Carpenters?
You're gonna love the Carpenters. Here we go.
Yeah, that checks out fully.
Oh man! All right.
Okay, let's talk. I'm just going to get the highlight out of the way because it's obvious and it couldn't be anything else. It's obviously Love Will Keep Us Together. It's their one enduring hit. It is a gold single. It won the Grammy for Record of the Year when it was released. It was also nominated in the Song of the Year category. It couldn't really have been anything else.
Wait, okay, hold on. Before you get any further,
Sure, of course.
I just need to say this out loud before I forget. I pulled up the Captain and Tennille main wiki page again.
Yeah.
And I glanced under genres. Their three genres are pop, soft rock, and middle of the road. It's just the genre.
I love it. I love
like the genre that they're known for is middle of the road.
Which is
beautiful.
Exactly right. So low light. A lot of this has, and now I'm going to bring up the fact that we've forgotten to say it. It's so dumb that Captain is called Captain.
I was waiting for you to say it.
Because his name is fucking Daryl Dragon. His last name is Dragon.
It's a way cooler name.
Like it's
like Daryl Dragon and Tony Tennille. Like, come on, those are some cool names.
Dragon and Tennille. Like people would probably think that their music was a lot heavier.
Yeah, maybe that's why they changed it.
Could be. But so in 2009, it was made public that Daryl Dragon had like a severe tremor due to a neurological condition that prevented him from playing piano to being able to continue to play music, which was a real shame. And he did pass away 10 years after that on January 2nd in 2019. So I think that would count as our low light here. But I'm going to tie into the low light, the meanest. I don't know if it was mean. It's one of those things. They were a married couple. If you don't know that. Well, obviously, I just said he was dead, but they had but they divorced in 2014. And it was like, from what I was reading about it, it was kind of complicated. Dragon was not expecting the divorce. Like, he was kind of blindsided by it. There was a lot of speculation at the time whether, and this is crazy, this says terribly fucked up things about the United States more than it does about them as a couple. But a lot of the speculation was about like whether they needed to divorce due to Daryl Dragon's medical issues and issues with insurance and billing and debts.
It's extremely common.
Insane. Absolutely insane. Truly, like, and everyone responsible for that, like, it's a me.
It really, I mean, it's one of those things where like you see it more and more, like elderly couples, or like not even elderly, but just like any couple where there's like some type of major health crisis, and it's like, well, the first thing we have to do is get divorced to protect one of our credits, because otherwise we're both going to go bankrupt.
Yeah, Viva la Revolucion.
I don't know if you can say that while streaming.
Oh, it wasn't in English. Don't worry, no one will pick up on that.
That's honestly, a great point.
So hey, but it turns out, like, okay, so we were talking about their divorce and the speculation around it, but what actually happened? Tennille did come out and say that it was a loveless marriage and there was a lack of physical affection. I think like it was one of those cases where they were, I guess, more roommates than a married couple, and she was not happy. So I think it was not a great time in their marriage for a while. So sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Low light / mean. That's what it is. For Nice, they did perform a benefit concert for the Reno Chamber Orchestra in 2003. And it was originally just going to be Tennille, and she brought out Captain as her special guest. How exciting. Okay, getting into the 6 degrees and the unique. So, Tony Tennille sang the national anthem at the 1980 Major League Baseball All-Star Game.
Wow.
And do you know who else has sung the national anthem at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game? Meat Loaf in 1994. Vanessa Carlton, who I'm pretty sure we covered in 2003, but I can't remember for sure. And Sheryl Crow in 2008. Tony Tennille also hosted her own show called The Tony Tennille Show from 1980 to 1981. Not a very long-lived show.
No,
but
certainly not.
In that very short time, her guests included B.B. King, Rick James, Nancy Wilson, and Chuck Berry.
Okay.
Covered all of them. Okay. Now I get to the unique part. So the captain,
Mr. Dragon.
Mr. Dragon. So he actually got his nickname due to the fact that he always wore a ship's captain's hat. And that actually started where he acquired the nickname was not playing with Captain and Tennille. It was not in their musical careers before that where they met when they were actually doing auditions for a musical called Mother Earth that Tony Tennille had co-written. And it actually kind of makes sense that she came from a world of doing musicals. But it actually happened while the captain was a keyboardist who toured with the Beach Boys.
Yep.
And he became famous as the captain playing with the Beach Boys, which makes a lot of sense. You know, the captain of the boats, beaches, they all go together.
I can tell you what the captain did not ever contribute to the Beach Boys. Their tempo. Not a one.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that. Because there have been a number of touring musicians and members of the Beach Boys over the years. But there was actually a time in the 1970s, and this is what's really unique. There was actually a time in the 1970s where Captain was not involved, and they were still looking for a touring keyboardist. So he recommended Tennille. And Toni Tennille, because of her brief time touring with the Beach Boys in the 70s, is actually known as the only ever in history beach girl.
Wow.
She's the only woman who's ever played with the Beach Boys.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And that's everything I've got.
Cool. And you know what? Just to tie up something I thought was a little cute anecdote at the very end of this. Because we mentioned their divorce, which you mentioned that the captain was blindsided by. But when the captain passed away 2 years after, or 4 years after their divorce, Toni Tennille was right by his side. So they still remained close.
Okay, that's good.
You know, I mean, if you're just friends for a bunch of years in your marriage and then you get divorced, I mean, it's probably easy to just still be friends, right?
Fair enough.
Not much changed if it's like kind of a loveless, physical, like sexless marriage.
Yeah.
Is that not just a really good friendship?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm with you.
So
just to move on to two people who were in the same exact position and had the same exact life story as Captain and Tennille. Let's move into Seals and Crofts.
Perfect.
They were married, right?
Probably at some point. Yeah, they were. Not to each other, but yes.
Well, sure, yeah.
I mean, really, aren't we all married in the grand scheme?
You know I am.
I do know that. Oh my gosh. All right. All right. How do you feel? You feel ready? You want to just jump in?
I'm ready. Okay.
Let's just jump in.
3, 2, 1.
Seals and Crofts were an American soft rock duo formed in Los Angeles, California. And they were active for, get ready, 1969 to 1981. Then again from 1989 to 1992.
Just in time.
And then again in 2004. Just real quick.
Just for time.
Yeah, just hanging out. We covered 3 albums. First off, big shout out to Seals and Crofts for this. We got an eponymous debut album, Seals and Crofts from 1969. We followed that up with Summer Breeze from 1972. And then after a little bit of conversation, we ended up going with The Longest Road from 1980. So we did almost do Traces from 2004, but considering it was all re-records of previous works, we figured we'd give them the benefit of the doubt. Although we did listen to, I'm assuming you also listened to Summer Breeze.
Summer Breeze, yeah.
It's like
100%.
We both said we're going to listen to one song just to kind of hear how their voices held up in the 2000s. And we both picked Summer Breeze.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. This is my group, so I'll get us started. And here's the thing. I did not start with Seals and Crofts. I started with Captain and Tennille. So let me tell you, this album was like a shot of espresso. And it's not even that upbeat or like
No, not at all.
but I mean, we're in comparison, this album might as well be like techno. It was that different in terms of its rhythms. But the reality of the situation, this is a folk rock duo in this album, and it's a good folk rock album, not a great folk rock album. That's what I'll say. It's good. It's not great. We have on this show we have heard significantly better
Yes.
in the folk space. But the good, I think, outweighs the bad here in terms of there are varied tempos, there are varied lyrics. The lyrics actually have a little bit of meaning behind them at times. And the vocals are both good. They both are singing and they're both, good vocalists. A little like shaky, maybe I'll say, if that's like, I don't know. There were moments in the singing where I was like warbly. They're a little warbly.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
That's what it was. I was looking for the word. I'm like, shaky's
I'll
not
take
right. They were a
warbly.
little warbly in the vocal, but like a pleasant tone. If I'm comparing it to the other albums I listened to this week, I'm going to hold it in a lot higher regard than if I compared it with other folk rock albums that we have covered on this show.
Yeah.
If, it's probably like a B minus.
Okay. So I'm glad you said that because for the sake of fairness, I'll also open by giving Robert Christgau's contribution.
Oh,
about
good.
This album, which he did like more than Captain and Tennille's first album. In moments of self-criticism, I sometimes believe I'll praise anything that's tight and tuneful. This record proves those suspicions unfounded. Maybe Seals and Crofts shouldn't have printed their lyrics on the inside jacket. C minus.
Hey, you know what? I am
full letter
a
grade
little
higher.
more positive than Robert Christgau, and that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. And I really had no idea what to expect coming into this album because, of course, I know one line of the song "Summer Breeze" over and over again. This was way more folk than I expected.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. It's like a very pure 60s folk sound. They have like the good vocals on here. The album sounds good overall. I don't think any of the songs ever fully grabbed me, and I think you mentioned sometimes the lyrics were on point. Christgau had
Sometimes.
some criticism of the lyrics. I was waiting for something to be like it's 1969, man, and you're singing folk music.
So
I was waiting for the social commentary that never came.
there is a reason for that.
Of course.
And the reason for that, I'll just say a little bit of it now because I don't
They were
talk
both
about it.
hardcore Nixon supporters.
Well, they're both very, very into the Baha'i faith, which is all like peace and love and not a lot of like, they don't really talk shit in the Baha'i, circles. It's all
I
just.
don't think writing songs about wanting society to improve is tough.
I agree, but they don't. Basically, their version of the social commentary, at least at the time, we will talk about a time when it was not this, but their version of the social commentary of like, let's make things better is like, let's all be loving and caring and make things better that way, and not very much like calling out the problems.
I see.
So that is why there was not the depth of lyric. But with that context, I thought they did a decent job in the lyrics.
All right. With all that said, we're going to jump into Summer Breeze. And I'll tell you right away, there's a lot of differences. There's a clear difference in production value. There's a clear move from what I would call a purer 60s folk sound to more of a folk-flavored soft rock pop of the 70s. Maybe you could even say middle of the road as a description for this duo. But here's the thing about Summer Breeze. As I've alluded to, no matter how many times I have heard the song, and it's been a bunch, I can only ever hear the one line in the chorus. But they could have just repeated that line from the chorus like for 3 minutes straight, and I would still listen to that song and fucking love it.
Yeah, it is. It is the hook of all
It is like
hooks.
the best hook I've ever heard. I love the hook to Summer Breeze. And even though I've continued to listen to that song and will continue to listen to that song, I just have no idea what the rest of it sounds like. It could be anything. It could be like hardcore death metal, and I wouldn't know because I could just only hear Summer Breeze makes me feel fine. Something, 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 something.
Yeah.
Uh, but there were some other good and bad. So, like my song to critique would be "The Boy Down the Road" because they did that stupid fucking talking thing near the end of that song. It wasn't really a "Hey Girl," but it was in the style of a "Hey Girl," and I will not have it. The positive is the song "Euphrates," the Euphrates, which had a real Crosby, Stills, and Nash vibe, which is, I think, the highest praise you can give in folk rock. No
Yeah.
spoilers for how I'm going to grade the Crosby, Stills, and Nash episode, but like 70s Crosby, Stills, and Nash is pretty much the best you can do with folk rock.
Listen, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I would extend the plus of this album into Advanced Guards as well. I thought both of those tracks, which are both towards the end of the B-side, which is hilarious to me,
Yeah.
were equally good.
Mhm.
I think they both held up really well. They had interesting rhythms, interesting lyrics, actual dynamic harmony sounded good. So both of those were good. Summer Breeze, I agree with everything you said. It's the hook on that song is
Okay.
so hookish.
So good.
Just play that line on repeat. There's a reason it's the only line most
Anyone
people will
knows.
remember. But yeah, the increase in production quality that you're talking about, which I also heard, is even more so a combination of like the time, because it's a couple years later and like they're have gained some success, but they shifted from TA Records to Warner Brothers Records.
Oh, well, that'll do it.
Yeah, so they had the money of Warner Brothers Records to be able to put into the production of this album, which is why it is significantly better.
Yeah, and that
Quality.
makes so much more of a difference 50 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Like right now, what it
Anybody
really
with access to money can put together a very good sounding album.
not even money, dude. We could put together. I mean, we put together a good sounding album. Like our first album.
Well, sure. I mean, you have to. What I'm saying, you have to be able to like afford some sort of programming.
Yeah,
program,
I think even
guess.
now, like in terms of the ease of making quality, like GarageBand is free. It's a
Sure.
free program, and you could put out a song
A lot of people do.
significantly higher quality in terms of just sound quality than anything on these first two albums for literally with a free program that comes with your computer. So just interesting stuff. The advancement in technology aside,
Yeah.
the album itself is better than the first album in terms of quality and in terms of there were a couple more highlights. I get what you're saying, and we are both very big lovers of folk and folk rock, so we hold it to a high bar.
Mm-hmm.
So like I feel like Seals and Croft are getting punished by that a little bit, but I think the punishment makes up for the just the competition this week.
Sure.
Because we did not like Captain Anthony.
No, that wasn't great.
so I feel like it kind of balances out. It's like, well, they're getting judged a little harshly because it's folk rock, but it's not as good as the other folk rock. But they're also getting kind of a bonus for going up against Captain and Tennille.
Yeah, hopefully it cancels out.
It's really shaken out. I'll take us to The Longest Road, where I will also touch a little bit on Traces, and we'll talk about just a bit of Traces. But The Longest Road was fine. I mean, really, it's really what it boils down to. There wasn't too crazy of a difference here. There were a couple songs where the social commentary you were looking for showed up. Especially the song "Egypt, Israel, and America," which was a like a ballad trying to call for peace, like supporting the peace and like a ceasefire in those countries, the other countries that aren't America, because there was no,
Right.
you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Specifically Israel. They were like supporting Israel, which
Times have
very
really changed.
yeah, very interesting nowadays. But talking about the social commentary, you were lamenting a lack of it. It was there. We will also talk about another album that they had social commentary on in the facts.
Okay, I'm ready for that.
Yeah, but this album was fine. Again, they sound good. So like they sound good. The music and tempo is like just musically it's fine. Lyrically is fine. I didn't necessarily agree with the lyrics, but I'm not the type of person who will be like hypocritical and say like if I don't agree with your message, I don't support you having a
Still
message.
be well written.
Yeah, I thought, it was good. There are some times when we've had like really, really bad on the nose, and I thought Egypt, Israel, and America was like the closest you can get to being a little too on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it was fine. This album is like, ironically, I would say almost a little more soft rock than folk rock, even though
Yes.
the social commentary aspect of it would be more folk rock. So like the lyrics got a little more folk, but the music got a little less folk.
Okay. So I will say, like, I feel like this is a band that's very middle of the road soft rock, but they are moving with the times a little bit.
Yeah.
And what gave me a lot of hope was actually the first track, Stars, which I think was by far the second best song this group ever came out with. And the main reason for that would be the arrangement and the instrumentation. I mean, there was an absolutely killer piano solo on there, like super jazzy. And the arrangement was like, hey, are you like, you're still who you are, but maybe you've heard a Steely Dan record or two and you're like, we can implement like really tight jazz rock arrangements and like have some interesting solos and do things that are a little different. And I was like, okay. And then they just stopped doing that after the first song. And I was like, oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
so the one I did completely forget this, but I have to say it now. There is one song that does do an interesting piano thing again later on in the album, and it's If and Any Day. And let me tell you, when I heard the beginning of If and Any Day, I ran to Google so fast to see which song came first, because if that song is not My Life by Billy Joel, I will eat my hat.
Sure.
But Billy Joel came out with My Life in 1978. This album came out in 1980.
Right.
So I was literally like, it started playing and it did the like, like not the same tempo. It was a little different tempo,
Yeah.
but it did that whole thing. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I was just waiting for the which that did not happen.
Sure.
But like the whole beginning riff of My Life was like the entire beginning of this song, and then it happened throughout the song. I'm like, what's happening? It was weird because that's not a very common. Like Billy Joel is not somebody who you hear a lot of people mimicking. You hear a lot of influence of Billy Joel, but I as like a Billy Joel fan, like it's very recognizable to me when people are putting forth a Billy Joel-esque sound, which happened here.
I know,
very, very heavily.
Of all the Billy Joel-esque sounds to go with the distorted electric guitar, bro.
Not the one.
But yeah, I mean, like this, it was fine. Like I didn't not like listening to it. I was fine with it, but I wasn't absorbed by anything. After the first song, there was kind of a couple of disappointing tracks because it went back to being very, very middle of the road. There were definitely some flashes of more interesting arrangements after that, but it never quite lived up to what I hoped the album would be.
Fair enough, man. I get you.
It would have been a nice move for them.
Yeah. Listen, it would have been. it's hard for me again because if we're comparing the two artists,
Well, at
that's what I
some
mean.
point we will be pretty directly.
Right. So it's rough in that instance, like, because the comparison is not very close to me. But we also have to remember we're comparing the both groups to all that came before them on
Correct.
the podcast. So we'll see what happens. I'll talk
We will.
about Seals and Crofts now. So one thing that I thought was interesting, just a unique thing that I thought was funny.
Yeah,
So-
I'm ready for it.
Seals and Crofts got together, and that's their name, and it's because it's their last names. You know, the naming convention is not very clever,
No.
but I thought it was hilarious that after the Seals and Crofts broke up for the first time, Seals and his brother Dan Seals toured
Seals and
together
Seals.
as Seals and Seals.
Love it.
And I thought
Absolutely
that
love
was
it.
fucking hilarious. I'm like, you really just can't come up with a name. You're just like, Seals and
Seals
Seals.
and
We're
Seals.
great. But like his brother also goes by England to Dan Seals.
Okay,
And the reason
sure.
he goes by England is because as a kid he used to always put on a fake British accent. And so
Might
they
as
just
well.
called him England.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So,
Um,
you know.
Also, I would be so disappointed to show up to a show titled Seals and Seals and have it not be seals with like actual seals. doing
Right?
tricks.
Right. You're not wrong.
I mean, that would have been kind of
Okay. So, highlight It's Summer Breeze. It's the whole album. So the album was their second album on Warner Brothers, and it was their sophomore album, and it really took off for them. It was their fourth overall, but sophomore on Warner Brothers. So the title track, the album peaked at number 7. The title track released and peaked at number 4 on Adult Contemporary, number 6 on Pop. Also, Hummingbird from that album was a moderately successful hit. The album went double platinum. It was clearly the highlight of their career and is the song that remains.
right. Exactly.
So we'll go from there. Some lowlights. I mean, we'll talk about in 1981, they just decided to not really, like, literally their breakup was them just not renewing their contract. They just kind of walked away when their contract was up, took a hiatus from music. They did attempt to get back together in 1983 and started working on another album, but they just kind of abandoned the sessions. Nothing ever came of it.
Right.
And then that was kind of it for them until they got back together for a little bit to just tour. And then they got back together in 2004 to record Traces,
Okay.
which, just to quickly mention, we listened to Summer Breeze. I think we maybe both will agree.
They held
sounded
up
great.
really well.
They held up
Really
really well. Like, they both still sounded really good. They were clearly older, but was very surprised at the quality from a group. Although I guess if you're not really performing, it's not like they were touring that whole time. They didn't have 50 years of touring under their belt before. Like,
Sure.
their voices were not being overworked, I guess.
Right.
So they held
sounded
up.
good.
They did. Nicest. So I did mention that they are well known for their musical contributions and public advocacy of the Baha'i faith.
Yes, you did.
So they're very outspoken about it. They use their platform to talk all about, like, peace and unity, reflecting the Baha'i teachings, to see the, so I am not an expert in the Baha'i faith, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But one of the concepts is, like, all of humanity is like one family. And so that's like the whole thing.
If you go back far enough, that's not wrong.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And we're going back. Yeah, it's a great point. Great point. So that was like kind of a thing. Okay. Now, part of their thing with the Baha'i faith, which sparked a bit of controversy for them in 1974, was they released an album or a song. I'm sorry, they released a song called Unborn Child.
Oh boy.
And the whole album was about the very recently passed Roe v.
Roe v.
Wade
Oh boy.
and how they were very staunchly anti-abortion. Uh,
Am I throwing you off?
yes.
Sorry.
You know I agree with you. Nick is just I'm calling you right now. Nick is just typing in our like private chat that we can see on our streaming platform, just all religion are cults, all religion are cults, which organized religion skews in that way. I am very much
2 thumbs down from me.
Yes. I am very much in the belief of like, I don't know if there's a higher power out there. I'm obviously not a person who is the expert on that. But believe what you want to believe. But like organized religion has caused so many issues globally. And it's not just one religion. I mean, it's one religion. It's one religion a little more than the others in terms
historically, yeah, sure.
Historically, but it's all of them, and it just creates these just struggles with everybody.
Yeah.
Like, regardless. It's a nice thing that they're very outspoken about their faith, and I don't begrudge them that.
Wouldn't say they shouldn't be able to do it.
Correct. But yeah, one of them, I have it under meanest. Like, they released an album, and it was all about Roe v. Wade.
Well,
and
I guess they got their wish.
Yeah, right. God, this world. Okay. But, you know, that's kind of it for them in terms of that. Go ahead and listen to it if you want. I chose not to because I don't agree with it.
Yeah, no thanks.
You know, and it's one of those things where, like, listen, again, I respect your ability to have a differing opinion, but I do not have to support it, and I won't. Yeah. However, the 6 Degrees I thought was an interesting one.
I'm ready.
Jim Seals, during 1959, was a member of the touring band of Eddie Cochran.
Hey, wow. How about that? He must have been a young whippersnapper at the time.
Yeah. I mean, he had to have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is
interesting.
Seals and Crofts.
Okay. Well, then, I guess. Oh, fascinating. I just looked up that album that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the opening track is a 40-second thing called Prelude that was actually written by David Paich of Toto fame. So 6 Degrees Toto sucks.
Wow, great.
Okay. Anyway, the bands and the scores and the cultural impacts of where we're starting. So here's the thing. It's very clear that if you're not a person who lived through the 1970s, that only one of these songs by Captain and Tennille kind of made it through. However, they did also have 6 top 5 hits, including 2 number 1s, 3 number 4s, and a 3 that all went gold as singles. So, you know, like not all top 5 hits go gold as singles. Not all number 1 hits go gold as singles.
It's true.
So I think we have to factor in here that this is a group that, despite us not really remembering or knowing any other songs besides the one, like their first 3 albums all went either gold or platinum. They had a 4th album that went gold. They had a lot of successful singles. Toni Tennille literally got her own television show for 1 season. I think it ran for like 100 episodes of like a daily talk show.
Yeah.
Like they were very much in the zeitgeist of the late 70s into around 1980. There's a 5-year period where they were definitely like a very popular pair of people.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't call Captain and Tennille a household name today, but they're a group I've heard of.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
it's more than a point. It's like all this to say, like they're not just a one-hit wonder because
no, they're not getting 1 point here.
Big hits.
I think they are,
and a TV show. Here's
what I think. We'll play the narrow game. We'll narrow down. Obviously, they're above a 1.
Obviously,
I would also argue they're below a 5.
100%.
So we're in between that 1 to 5 range. In between there, I think we're not right in the middle of that. I think
Okay.
we're maybe skewing a little under,
Okay.
and I would give them anywhere from a 1.1 to a 2.3. That is my range, and I will let you fall in
Okay.
somewhere in
I'm
there.
higher than that.
You're higher than a 2.3?
I'm higher than that. I mean, for the reasons that I've stated. Not very many artists have 6 gold singles. I mean, I only mentioned the top 5 singles, but there were a couple of other top 10 singles. There was another top 40 single. This was happening like they were putting out albums each year. Like literally, Tony Tennille had a TV show where she was on TV talking to famous celebrities and other musicians every day for like a year. You know, like this is, they were, I just don't want to underrepresent an artist that was for about 5 years. You know, like there's a ton of people right now that we would probably think of as total household names that hold a similar space, that are putting out major singles that are, you know, getting like hundreds of millions of streams all the time. But 20 years from now, no one will have heard of them. But that doesn't mean they're not fucking enormous right now. And I think that Captain and Tennille hold that space.
I don't
Towards
know
us.
about all that. I'll be honest with you. I get what you're saying. I think the threshold of success in today's game is harder.
Okay.
I do. And I what I mean by that is like in the 70s there was less variety of entertainment than there is today. Today we are being fed
Culture was, yeah, it was less niche.
so like a
give
TV
you that.
show. So like for instance, Nick, there like Kelly Clarkson has had a TV show for years, a daily
Sure.
talk show like similar to the
Mhm.
the Tennille show that you're talking
And
about.
I think she, whenever we happen to cover her musical career, she'll probably score more than 2 points.
Oh
for
yeah, I
cultural
agree.
impact.
I agree, but I don't I don't know.
right,
I understand what you're saying.
Let me say this. So let me pick someone similar, but like from our age. Let's go back in time. It's the year like 2005.
Okay.
Everyone that we know knows like 3 or 4 of the biggest hits by Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? If you ask any kid in high school now who Avril Lavigne is, they would say, "Who the fuck are you talking about? What is that name?" But she was like pretty big at the time. She
Fun
got a
fact.
6.7 for cultural
Okay.
impact for us.
Fun fact. Just want to
Okay.
say a fun fact real quick because we were just talking about both of these artists. Did you know that Avril Lavigne wrote Breakaway, Kelly
that's
Clarkson's title track of her first album?
No surprise.
She was only like
But
16
cool.
at the time.
Good for her.
Just thought that's a fun fact to
But
know.
do you see what I am saying in terms of like that felt more immediate to us because we were alive, and she got triple plus the score we're talking about giving Captain and Tennille. But it's not like they didn't have a similar stretch of immense popularity. So it's like, does that
I would
stretch being
argue-
from 2000 to 2005 count more than if it was from 1983 to
I would argue
1988 or
that-
75 to 80?
Man.
It's tough. Like, it's obviously what we're doing here has no actual like parameters other than trying to do our best to be consistent with ourselves.
I mean, just here's the thing, right? Just looking at Avril Lavigne's sales, because you're mentioning the stretch of gold
Sure.
singles for them. Avril Lavigne's first album went 7 times platinum in the US alone,
Fair enough.
7 times platinum in Australia. It sold 16 million worldwide records,
Sure.
which is probably, you know, her second album sold 10 million. Her
Yeah,
third
okay.
album sold 6.
Fair enough. Fair
So
enough. Like, I was not arguing Captain and Tennille up to a 6.7, to be fair. I was just trying to argue them closer to a 3.
right, and
I was
I'm
using
fine
that
giving them-
example of like there is something similar there in the sense of they were a cultural force for half a decade. And then
Sure.
no one really remembers much if you didn't live through it.
Listen, I understand what you're saying. I'm willing to go up to like a 2.8.
Perfect.
I think that's where we'll land. I just was making sure to be like, listen, I get what you're saying, but like
Sure.
Avril Lavigne sold like 40 million records, which is why her cultural impact is higher.
Sure. I mean, Captain and Neil sold 23 million records.
That's double. So her score's double. It works.
Right.
Look at us.
There we go.
All of a sudden, the mathed.
A little bit. All right, Seals and Crofts. They, I think, have a little less to argue here for than Summer Breeze compared. Obviously, they did have a little bit more sustained success in their album sales than I would have expected, but they don't have like the TV show level of popularity or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. They do, they do have.
Look, this is not this is not a world in which Captain and Tennille are going to win many of the categories. I think they definitely are winning the first one.
I think that, I think they do. Looking at the scores, looking at the discography a little bit for Seals and Crofts, I think we're probably looking at above a 1 but under a 2.
I'm 100% with you. I already have 1 point written.
Yeah, because Summer Breeze is a 1 off the bat, off Jump Street, because it's a.
But if you were live at the time, you would have heard some of their other tunes.
Yeah, so a couple other ones. I mean, Hummingbird was a moderate success for them as a single, as I mentioned earlier. We're just looking at it like Diamond Girl.
What if I gave them a 1.6 and we moved on with our lives?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, great. Breath of War, Captain and Tennille, not counting their Christmas album, which we would never do, have 7 records. They start with a 5.2. As I've mentioned, they've sold about 23 million records, which means, generally speaking, for us that are going up a 0.2 to a 0.3 automatically here. So which one of those numbers would you prefer? I'm going to have them go up to 0.3 because they're only going to go down from here.
Correct. I was about to say we can be generous because it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make clear, this wasn't actively painful to listen to. It was just boring and cheesy, but it wasn't like music so offensive that it hurt my ears. I was like, oh, I can't wait to skip through all these songs.
No.
And for that reason, I'm going to take away 0.2.
Yeah, I'm a little harsher than you on this. Not much, but I'm going to take away 0.3. Reasons are the same. It did get to a point where it was a little painful for me by the third album.
All right, Seals and Crofts. We're looking at a 5.8 if I counted their albums correctly. I believe it's about 13 if you take out all of the what I believe to be compilation albums.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
So from there, I don't know if you caught how many total records that they have sold.
I didn't see a total sales number because their discography is only part of their main page.
Sure.
But however, in terms of certifications, we do have Summer Breeze with double platinum, and then another double platinum with their greatest hits, which we don't necessarily count. But we count in terms of overall sales. And then 4 other albums that went gold.
Yeah. Okay. So that's enough that they're getting a slight bump. Probably a little less than Captain and Tennille. So we gave them a 0.3. I'll give Seals and Crofts a 0.2.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then what would you like to do with their score from there?
I'm going to give them 1 point. I thought that their stuff was a little more varied. I really liked the fact that they were both singing and there was harmonies involved. That tickled my ear in a way that I was really missing it with Captain and Tennille.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I agree.
Tennille, who sounded good, but it was
great,
just her.
But it's just her.
There was one song it was a cover and it was a duet.
Oh, on the last album?
Yeah, and she
but
did
that
it with
that wasn't Captain.
It wasn't. It's the guy who actually wrote the song. It was Bobby Caldwell.
Okay, I heard the voice and I'm like, that's got to be Bobby Caldwell.
It was, and because it was covering a Bobby Caldwell song.
Okay.
So yes, you're correct. But it was nice to hear another person.
Totally.
It was nice to have that. Yeah. So I'm giving them 1 point.
Yeah. I'm going to give them nothing for all 3 of their albums, and then I'm going to give them a 0.1 for Summer Breeze.
Perfect. That's great. I love it.
And instrumental. I think you've mentioned that the harmonies are one of the stronger things for Seals and Crofts, but nothing else really stood out with the exception of like one tune where they brought in some really good studio musicians and tried out some cool jazzy piano. Captain and Tennille, I would say, are probably the more well, Tennille is the most capable vocalist of anyone.
Yeah.
And I mean, the keyboard playing between Captain and Tennille is very good, but there's nothing like crazy on these records. The main like all-star performances are going to come as vocals. I think Tennille has the slight edge in terms of vocals. I think Seals and Crofts have the edge in terms of harmonies.
Now,
I think neither one of these groups is crazy high.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but some things to consider for Seals and Crofts. I think you may be undercutting them a little bit, especially Jim Seals. On Summer Breeze, Jim Seals contributed guitar, mandolin, and fiddle.
Yeah, I mean, multi-instrumentalist.
And
definitely.
saxophone. He was also playing the saxophone.
That's interesting, because I think Jim Horn played on records for both of these artists, actually. I mean, he played on everyone's fucking records.
Sure, he was playing woodwinds on this album, but Jim Seals is credited on saxophone for them as well. So just saying that there was a variety of instruments played by the main duo, whereas with Captain and Tennille, you're getting basically keyboard and one vocalist.
Yeah, it's funny. Tennille, or Captain, is actually listed on the first album. Let me check. His credits for the liners say ARP, Odyssey, Mini Moog, piano, clavinet, Wurlitzer, Hammond, Celeste, ARP,
just
Selena.
A bunch of keys.
Another way of saying he plays all the keyboards. I'm not saying you don't have to approach those instruments differently to get like the best parts out of them, which of course you do. But like in terms of the physical playing of them, they are keyboards.
Yeah.
I mean, I could play all of those instruments as well because I know how to play the piano.
Right. All that to say, I wanted to be sure, like, I agree that they're not both crazy high scores.
Yeah, no one's getting out of the fives. No one's getting out of like the mid fives.
Just calling out that, specifically Jim Seals plays like
credit for where
5 or 6 instruments on these albums.
But no parts here that are like, there wasn't, with the one exception of the jazz piano solo on the song Stars on the third album, there were no instrumental parts where I thought that was my moment of like a great musician.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
So I don't know. I'm middle of the road.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably for Seals and Crofts specifically, just because they're my artist. Mm-hmm. I was probably leaning into like the 5.3, 5.4 range. Above average, a good sound.
Sure.
And again, I really liked the multi-instrumentalist. Sure. Like the multi-instrumentalist aspect.
And for that comparison, I'll give Captain and Tennille a 5.3 as well, because the vocals were slightly better, but they didn't have that differentiation.
Yeah. Okay. Tennille was a better singer.
Tennille was definitely
there was only one of her.
Correct.
Like if there was any harmonies, I would be much more willing to be like, yeah, they were clearly better. But like, I don't know. I'm not quite as convinced on that.
Okay. Songwriting. We got to start with Captain Tennille. We got to start with the fact that they had 7 records. However, they wrote about approximately half the songs on their first 2 records and only 1 song on the third. When I look at their, like, I picked a record in between and I see 2 compositions. I'm going to pick another random record in between. This one I am seeing 4 compositions. I mean, it's pretty clear that even though they're being scored for 7 albums, it's more. I would generously give them credit for 3.5 as a starting point. So instead of starting from a 5, I feel like this group is more like starting from a 3.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, got to throw that out there. The positive that I mentioned when we covered their records is that I didn't think the compositions were necessarily like inherently uninteresting or like not complex for pop tunes necessarily. But the way that they were performed, man, really killed anything that the compositions brought to the table. Like, it's one of those
Yeah.
cases, like if you're a great vocalist, but you go on your records, it's like, okay, I know that you can sing, but on the records you went. So, like, it's not helping your case. The best I can do is to leave them at 3, but I can be open to a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be a little under that,
That's fine.
just because like it's like the perfect storm of sameness, but also boring.
It was
Like if it
very
was
boring.
interesting, but all the same, it would be like I'd be like more willing to leave them where they are. But it was boring and all the same.
Mhm.
So like there was nothing.
So you want to chop them down a half a point or so?
I think that's probably a good spot.
I love it. Okay, moving on to Seals and Crofts. Positive. I felt I could hear a difference between the albums.
Yes, definitely between the albums and sometimes between the songs.
Yes. Negative. None of it really left the soft rock middle of the road after their first album, where they were more folky.
Yeah.
Like, it's not super adventurous or anything, but it's good within its niche.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm probably not venturing very far from the middle of the road for the score. It's a score very close to 5 for me.
Sure. And this is a group that's not suffering any penalties to their
No.
writing. And I completely agree with you. I would put them right around 5.51, that range. They're middle of the
I'll give it
road.
to him. 5-1 it is.
Yeah.
Poetic talent. We're starting with a 3 again because the precedent set for Captain and Tennille. And hey, lyrically, I don't think they're making any case for themselves. It might be lower than the songwriting.
It's definitely lower than the songwriting, dude, because none of these lyrics are
or anything.
anything other than like absolute Limburger cheese, brother. just the stinkiest cheese you're gonna get. And it's a combination of that, and the only times it's not that, it's a cover, which are
Sure.
sprinkled sporadically, which covers are dangerous because
they can reveal the lack of
they can
songwriting
reveal the weaknesses in your own writing if you're doing covers.
Sure.
Because if somebody is like, oh, these lyrics were really good, and they're like, that was a cover,
I
all the
didn't
other
write
lyrics sucked that weren't the cover, I get it now.
Sure.
So yeah,
Well-
I might even be like a 2.
Oh, okay. I was willing to.
We can go
down
lower.
into the ones. I had written down 1.6, but if you disagree, I can. Bring
I
it back up.
love it. Nick, I love it because truly I couldn't tell you. Like, think of their most famous lyric.
Love
It's
will keep
just
us together.
Love will keep
But they
us
didn't
together.
write it. Neil Sedaka wrote that.
Right, but it's it's their most famous lyric in the whole group, and I would say
Yeah.
that even that
Well-
is pretty derivative and
So,
cheesy.
Here's what I got to say. Counter argument for Seals and Crofts is that they only, in their entire careers, wrote 6 words. Summer breeze makes me feel fine. At no other point did I hear a single other word on these 3 albums.
Listen, this is where it's very important for us to stay objective, because I do think that their first album did not necessarily have the biting social commentary that we come to expect from folk and folk rock,
Correct.
which was disappointing. And unfortunately for literally the two of us, when they did have biting social commentary, it was on the other opposite side of the aisle from us.
Yeah.
That being said, I still have to give them the credit for doing it.
Sure.
Like, even
I mean,
though
I don't know what the
disagree.
lyrics look like, so the lyrics might be bad.
Yeah, well,
You can
not even
badly
just
write about
yeah,
any issue.
not even just the Unborn Child album, just like a couple throughout where they were touching on things in a way,
Sure.
you know. all that being said, I'm not looking for a high score here.
No, nor should you be, nor would I allow it.
Yeah, but I would say that this is probably in the fives, not a 5, but in the fives.
I'll give you a 2.
I love it. 5.2 it is.
Is there X factor that we need to be aware of? Is being the only beach girl X factor? If not, then I have nothing else.
I feel like that's more anecdotal than X factor.
I agree with you. So that's nothing. I got zeros and I got final scores.
I love it.
So winning this week's episode is Seals and Crofts with a 23.4. They had, after the first 3 categories, identical scores.
Wow.
Then songwriting and poetic really put Seals and Crofts over the top. Captain and Tennille finished in second place with a 17.2. So there was a 6.2 point gap in the writing phase of our grading. And, I've got to say something because we haven't addressed it at all. And it was something that I definitely mentioned at the end of last week's episode.
I was waiting for you to say it.
So last week I said that this week was going to be the Battle of the Birds. And then it wasn't. And then we did these duos instead. And there was a reason for it. And we were originally going to do the Battle of the Birds. But as we just started looking at the music this week, I realized that one of the artists in this week's Battle of the Birds has a new album coming out literally tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so we were like, all right, let's just swap them and do them next week once the album has actually come out and we can talk about it. But what are the odds?
It's only fair. It was crazy. You texted me that. I'm like, what? Like, all right. I guess we're pivoting. We're doing it.
Yeah. So that's what we did. So the Battle of the Birds, unless for some reason there is a major issue with a record label and this album doesn't come out, it gets delayed by a week.
Oh man.
Don't
jinx it. Don't put that in the universe.
Sorry, universe. But yeah, that's what's happening next week.
Hey, listen, all I gotta say, we'll battle with some birds. It'll be a great time.
Yes.
But most importantly, guys, love will keep us together. Okay. Right. And nothing is more true than the fact that the summer breeze does make me feel fine.
Yes, it does.
And with those words of wisdom, those snippets from our 2 artists, have a great day. And fuck Jerry Lee Lewis.
That's right. I will. I'm digging him up.
Oh, oh, God.
That was not recorded, right?
I mean, it's recorded. It just wasn't. Wow. We can cut it, but it's happened. We're still live.
Yeah. Well, I don't recall that.
No, yeah. Okay. That's just deny.
Yeah, I mean, if I just say it enough, all my sycophants out there will just believe me.
Oh, the downfall of humanity as we know it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's not important. Oh my God, I'm trying to pull up something here that I wanted to mention to you, and my internet is just like, no, just not going to do it. Thank you. Appreciate you asking. It's such a cool little article. Okay, I'm going to try searching for it again.
I have faith.
All right, can I actually get, there's so many articles about this article, about this particular opinion piece. No. Damn it. That's another one that I thought was going to be the piece, and it was somebody writing a letter about, Jesus Christ.
Oh, about Jesus Christ, huh?
No. Okay, got it. Okay. So Larry David.
I do.
Of Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld fame. So, do you know what's been going on with Bill Maher as of late? Are you hip to that?
I am familiar with the Bill Maher.
His dinner, and then his monologue about the dinner. Okay. Yeah. So without mentioning Bill Maher at all, Larry David wrote this New York Times opinion piece, and I'm just going to read you a couple parts of it.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Okay. No. Don't update your terms. Just let me continue. Okay. By Larry David, this is called My Dinner with Adolf. Imagine my surprise when in the spring of 1939, a letter arrived at my house inviting me to dinner at the old chancellery with the world's most reviled man, Adolf Hitler. I had been a vocal critic of his on the radio from the beginning, pretty much predicting everything he was going to do on the road to dictatorship. No one I knew encouraged me to go. He's Hitler. He's a monster. But eventually I concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we need to talk to the other side, even if it has invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity. 2 weeks later, I found myself on the front steps of the old chancellery and was led into an opulent living room where a few of the Fuhrer's most vocal supporters had gathered: Himmler, Goering, Leni Riefenstahl, and the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII. We talked about some of the beautiful art on the walls that had been taken from the homes of Jews, but our conversation ended abruptly when we heard loud footsteps coming down the hallway. Everyone stiffened as Hitler entered the room. He was wearing a tan suit with a swastika armband and gave me enthusiastic greeting that caught me off guard. Frankly, it was a warmer greeting than I normally get from my parents, and it was accompanied by a slap on my back. I found the whole thing quite disarming. I joked that I was surprised to see him in a tan suit, because if he wore that out, it would be perceived as un-Fuhrer-like. That amused him to no end, and I realized I'd never seen him laugh before. Suddenly, he seemed so human. Here I was, prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler. But this private Hitler was a completely different animal, and oddly enough, this one seemed more authentic. Like this was the real Hitler. The whole thing had my head spinning. And it goes on like this.
Oh my God.
It's just the most beautiful little satirical piece of Bill Maher without ever mentioning him or the situation.
I have to read that.
Wonderful.
I have to read that whole thing because that is amazing.
God damn it. I keep trying to copy and paste and then I hit control and no, that's not what I want to do. I keep fucking up copy and paste on my computer because I'm getting used to my stupid work computer.
Listen, I'm not sympathetic to you. Okay, good. The reason I'm not sympathetic to you about that is because my work computer and my home computer are also like a Windows and a Mac because I have a Mac now, but it's the same keyboard because it's all monitors.
Okay, gotcha.
So like when I tell you that like you think it's bad for you, it's the same keyboard except for the Mac, instead of it being Control X and Control V, it's Windows button X and V.
Weird.
Which are right next to each other.
Yeah, that's very strange.
So, yeah. Just know that it could be worse. Oh, man. No, I can't wait to read that whole article. That's hilarious.
Very funny. Love that. Big fan of Larry doing that.
Yeah. What a fucking that whole Bill Maher thing.
Yeah, that's like,
come on, dude.
Come on. Like, are you that dumb or that much of a narcissist?
But did it not do exactly what he wanted? Yeah, I was about to say, did it not do exactly what he wanted? Well, I mean, you know who he had on his show to talk about it?
No.
Charlie Kirk.
Oh, yeah, great. Love that guy.
So, like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, you're talking to Charlie Kirk about your dinner with Trump? All right, dude. Congratulations. You've red pilled yourself.
So dumb. I mean, even fucking Gavin Newsom, when he started his podcast, his first, he's like, okay, I'm going to have Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on. Why?
Yeah.
What is the use in talking to them? Doesn't help. Doesn't help.
It doesn't
talk to
help.
Like real intellectuals, talk to real professors, talk to real scientists, talk to like anyone who actually knows anything about anything. And then I'm fine hearing their differences of opinion if they actually have like the credentials to back it up and are able to have an adult conversation that's not just about making propaganda.
And that would be it. If it was all in the sake of information and not needless propaganda on either side of the aisle.
Yeah.
because
For
I'm
sure.
sick of hearing it from both sides.
Yeah, I mean, one side is Nazis, though.
No. What I'm saying is I'm sick of hearing like deliberate propaganda.
Oh, for sure.
That's what I mean. Yes, opinion wise,
Yes.
I definitely agree that one side is Nazis and it's a problem.
It
But
is a problem.
I'm sick of hearing the bullshit propaganda and then it's fought with more bullshit propaganda. And it's like,
100%.
this isn't solving the problem.
Correct.
The reason that we're in this boat is because of bullshit propaganda.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm not particularly interested in what the DNC has to say about.
just think of how different the world would be today if the DNC hadn't actually formed a political coup on Bernie Sanders and he was allowed to win the Democratic primary that he rightfully won.
Not possible.
Just imagine a fucking world, man. I'm not saying we'd be in much better place. I don't know the answer to that. But
But we
like
probably wouldn't have,
but like there's a good
Not
chance that
based
he
on
would
that.
have won in 2016.
Yeah, there is.
You know what? I'm going to take us offline.
I think so.
Goodbye, everyone.